Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome to Pardon the Ministers. I'm Barrett O'Connell, and I'm excited. You know, I got to say, week 8 of the quarantine looks a whole lot like week 7 of the quarantine. This is May 6th. Yesterday was Cinco de Mayo and Taco Tuesday. Jason, did you have any tacos?
I'm speaking in the future here, and I'm pretty confident that I will be eating tacos on Taco Tuesday. So, you know, for Cinco de Mayo to align up with Taco Tuesday, I think happens once in a millennium. Maybe God knew this would be a tough year, and so he foresaw that he would put Cinco de Mayo and Taco Tuesday together in the same year to bring us some joy. And were we not in quarantine, I probably would have kept my kids out for this special occasion so they wouldn't miss it.
Well, I can say the math does check out. It is once a millennium that Taco Tuesday and Cinco de Mayo match up. You know, so we want to talk about some headlines today as we kick off. And the first one, Jason, has to do with a pastor in Louisiana. We're both ministers. We both oversee congregations. So this guy has decided that no matter what, they're going to meet for a church. And he's basically decided that the government can't tell him to stop, and it's his duty as a Christian to defy the government and have quarantine breaking church. So Jason, your church in Seattle, what are you guys doing? How do you view this topic?
So if you're asking me, is it okay for church leaders to defy government orders and open their church even though a state declares a quarantine? You know, I think that's a interesting question. I saw that article, and immediately, I have to be honest with you, there was something in me that felt like this was a little bit attention-seeking from the guy who was leading it. And the church was packed. When they met, the church was absolutely packed. And I know somebody has since passed away in that congregation, and I really hope somebody didn't die because a pastor wanted to build a reputation or to build a church or something like that. What I would say as a church leader is that in this situation, I think it's good for the churches to honor the government guidelines. When I look at the history of the churches, when they've how they've interacted with the government, like if you go back to the early church, they never defied government orders when it was against the common good of the people and the society that they lived in. And I think that's an important part in this situation is we're not being told that we can't be Christians. We're not being told that we can't encourage each other or meet in situations like this. What they're asking of us is the same they're asking of everybody, which is to think of the safety of the whole right now in a temporary time. I think it was Tertullian who said, wrote at the end of the beginning of the 2nd century to the Roman government as they were facing persecution and said, look, why don't you come and investigate us? And you will see that we're the best citizens in Rome, that the way we live our lives can be imitated by everybody in Rome. And that if everyone lived the way we did, a lot of the ills of society would not be happening right now. And their defense was, we are model citizens. And that's sort of what the Bible says. Live such good lives amongst the pagans that even though they accuse you of doing wrong, when they look at your life, they will not see anything. And I think during this time, for the good of the people, I think we should be good examples of looking out for the safety of everyone, and especially given the fact there's other ways for us to meet during this time, and it's only temporary. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I don't know his motivations. I can't see in his heart, but I definitely think it's a situation where it's possible to be very brave, very foolish, and maybe even selfish at the same time. I think we've taken a similar view in Houston and are making similar efforts. So I can see the appeal or the draw or the desire to say, I'm unafraid, but I definitely agree with you that it is a chance to really lead out as good citizens.
Yep. Well, I saw an interesting article, Barrett. So there's been an article that's been popular here in the last few days about a Good Morning America host who was caught doing his segment with suit and tie, but then shorts underneath that. And my question to you is, would you ever record a sermon from your home wearing shorts?
Well, I can tell you I would record a Pardon the Ministers episode while wearing shorts, and I'm doing so right now. But yes.
Can we just do a pants check? Everyone do a pants check. Stand up. I'm wearing pants. I got pants. Short. Clint. Oh man. I'm the only.
So I preached recently, and truthfully, I'm less likely to wear a suit top than I am to wear pants. So I didn't even wear a suit jacket top for my sermon, but I did preach in shorts. But for our first church staff meeting of this kind of quarantine, I actually showed up to the meeting, and it's a Zoom meeting with 16 people in squares, Brady Bunch style, and I showed up in a suit and tie, and I had the tie on all the way to the top, and I just wanted to communicate the proper seriousness that kind of the business of the church still matters to me, and I also just wanted to have a little fun and encourage people.
Well, maybe I'm old school. I would not record a sermon wearing shorts. I've worn pants for every sermon I've done, and I've actually worn pants for every staff Zoom call I've been on. I might be the only one in America that still is actually dressing for work like they were going to work. So.
Well, the better question is, are people even wearing shorts? We did a pants check, but we might need to do a bottoms check with some people. There's another article I found really interesting, Jason. It mentions that lots of churches were like, we do support the quarantine. We are going to do this, but we're going to break it for Easter. They just felt like Resurrection Sunday was so important. And I think about, we did our Easter service in quarantine, but I think about, is there an event that's so important that the church or that you would break quarantine? I think about, the baptism of my child, a wedding, a funeral, these kinds of things. What or anything would you break a quarantine for?
Man, that's a great question. These are, can I say, we have to say unprecedented times, I think once in every recording or lesson that we do. So I'll get it out.
It's without precedent.
Yes. So these are unprecedented times for our generation. And there's a lot of things that we're missing out on. I know in the church here, we've had 2 weddings during quarantine. We've had some baptisms during quarantine. If I were to quote Jeff Goldberg from Jurassic Park, life will find a way.
It finds a way. There you go.
Life always finds a way. And
I think Jeff Goldblum also said that.
Yeah, what did I say? Goldberg?
Goldberg, yeah.
Oh, man. So I think it would have been funnier with Jeff Goldberg. But so it's been, I think one of the things when I think about that question, what would I break quarantine for? If anything, I feel missing a funeral has been the hardest thing that I've seen people have to deal with, because the grief there is interrupted and it's hard, and you want to be there for that closure. It's been interesting if you have had that experience during this time of losing someone and not being able to go and be with family and be with the funeral. I think one of the things that has given comfort to people in these situations is knowing that everybody is going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And there is something comforting about that. It was weird for me to see on Easter that the Vatican didn't have Easter Mass. And I can't remember in my lifetime ever seeing that. And so even though we couldn't meet in person for Easter, there was something about the idea all the Christians around the globe are participating like this that made it a little more special than maybe what we would have gotten even with the pageantry and even with being able to see people face to face. Easter unites us all with the cross, but there was something about all of us being quarantined together and meeting online together that also made us feel connected in a different way, in my opinion. If we're still quarantined come around next year, maybe I'll feel differently, but for this experience, it felt special.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually performed a wedding, and it was me and the groom and the bride to be out in the front yard, and cars driving by occasionally honking on the horn in support. And it was an odd thing, but you know what happened? At the end, they were married. So there you go.
So all the people who are getting married and then pushing back their ceremony, as this carries on, is it just more likely that all of those couples say, we don't need a ceremony. We're going to keep that money?
This could be the end of wedding ceremonies as we know it. The wedding industry may never come back from it.
All right. All right. So here, I have an article for you as well. I saw an interesting article that highlighted a single mother's dilemma. She took her daughter to the store, and she put a sign on her daughter that was speaking from the daughter that said, "I'm too young to stay home. My mom needs to go buy groceries, so she had to take me with her. Please don't judge me." And I thought about this mother who felt this judgment that would be coming, to the point that felt like I'd rather just put a sign on my daughter's back so people wouldn't judge me. And I wanted to ask you, during any of this time in our quarantine, have you been tempted to judge somebody that you have seen out while you've been out?
Well, I haven't been out much, so I don't know that being out has triggered judgmentalism in me. But I do think, in general, I think being home and interacting with the world through the internet encourages judgmentalism. I think all internet communication encourages us to be judgmental, whether it's social media, the comments of a news article, whatever it might be. It makes us very, very aggressive in our judgments. And, so for me, I do see those things coming out. And, you hear about people taking part in life. You hear about people still going to the park. You hear about people, traveling when they don't need to, all these different things. And it makes me think, kind of, who do you think you are that you would value yourself over others, or your needs or your desires or your wants over others? So those thoughts do occur to me for sure. But I think about the single mom in that situation, and it is a sad thing that she's got to write that sign, because I don't think she's off base. Yeah. I think she's probably right that she has to do that. Yeah. Otherwise the judgment will come. So obviously, Jason, judgment is bad, but what if on the flip side of that really sympathetic single mom, who is the least sympathetic quarantine breaker who almost deserves our judgment?
Okay, so you mentioned the spring breaker who's partying on the beach, and he's being interviewed, and he's like, you know what? If I get it, I get it. Whatever. I got one shot at this, and it's hard not to be, shake your head at that young man.
Yeah, I don't wish ill on anyone, but anyone who actually says the words, "If I get it, I get it," it's a temptation for me to not want to wish ill on them.
Right.
I promise I don't go to that place, but I have to stop myself.
Yeah.
I have to stop myself. So it's been great looking at headlines with you, Jason. Very exciting time in our world, very interesting time in our world.
Hey, it's Andrew Burnett with any mistakes and corrections or facts. And I gotta say, for your first episode, you guys did pretty good. There's only a couple of things that I caught here. First of all, Barrett, it's not every once in a millennium that there is Taco Tuesday that is lined up with Cinco de Mayo. As a matter of fact, the last time it happened was in 2015. Also for Jason, Barrett already corrected you, but it's Jeff Goldblum, not Jeff Goldberg, in Jurassic Park. Life will find a way. And little fact checking on the cost of weddings. People might want to stick with quarantine weddings because the average cost of a wedding in America is $33,391. So I think we're seeing a new trend. Go to the Justice of the Peace, go to Barrett, get it done for under $50. And lastly, Barrett's line that he says that if I get it, is similar to one Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, who says, if he dies, he dies. And that's all I have for errors, corrections, and facts.
Audio Jungle.